Have you ever really looked at a simple plant pushing its way through the soil and just seen something more? Well, in the Islamic tradition, that plant isn't just, part of the scenery. It's actually a vibrant, active message. It's a sign of mercy, a lesson in growth. So let's explore that idea together. This really profound connection between the green of the earth and, believe it or not, the cultivation of our own hearts. So let's start with this verse from the Qur'an, because it really frames everything just perfectly. I mean, think about it. It takes a process we see all the time. Rain falls, plants grow, right? And it presents it as a direct, divine, and blessed act. It's really an invitation to kind of shift our perspective, to go from seeing a simple natural cycle to witnessing an act of intentional mercy. Okay, so the idea that nature is actually speaking to us, that's our first big concept here. In the Quranic worldview, every single leaf, every fruit, every blade of grass, it's more than just an object. It's a living message, an active sign that's pointing towards a much greater reality. And to really get a handle on this, there's one key term we've got to understand, and that term is ayah. Now, ayah is a really cool word because it has a double meaning. On one hand, it can mean a verse of the Qur'an, the written word, but it also means a sign or a miracle out in the world around us. So when the Qur'an speaks of plants, it's presenting them as an ayah, a living sign that communicates God's mercy, his power, and his incredible artistry just as clearly as any verse written on a page. All right, so if plants are messages, what exactly are they teaching us? It's a great question. The Qur'an actually uses the cycle of rain and plant growth all the time, not just as a sign of mercy, but as a really powerful teaching tool for some of its most central ideas. It's almost like there's a divine blueprint embedded right there in the natural world for us to read. So the first big lesson is all about provision, sustenance. This verse here draws a really clear, direct line from a divine act, sending down water from the sky, to a tangible result that keeps us alive, fruits and food. It's a constant reminder that our provision is rooted in this huge system of mercy that's totally beyond our control. And now, the metaphor gets even deeper. Here, the earth is described as being dead, completely dry, barren, lifeless. Then the rain comes and brings it back to life. So you see, this isn't just about food anymore. This becomes a powerful, recurring symbol for resurrection and renewal. It's presented as a proof, but for who? For people who are actually willing to hear it, to listen and reflect. So here's the crucial takeaway. These everyday natural processes become these really profound spiritual metaphors. What do plants teach us? Well, they teach us about renewal after death, like we just saw. They show us divine artistry and just their incredible diversity and beauty. They're a constant sign of mercy because of the food they provide. And maybe most importantly, they act as these amazing parables for faith. Comparing a person's heart to fertile soil, ready to soak up the rain of divine guidance. Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit. We've talked about scripture. Now let's talk about a living, breathing example. Because these ideas weren't just abstract concepts in a book, they were actually embodied in the life and the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad. He had this deep love for greenery and really set a powerful precedent for taking care of the environment. This teaching is just remarkable. It takes the simple act of planting a tree and elevates it to an act of ongoing charity. I mean, think about that. The tree keeps on providing shade or food or shelter long after you've walked away. And every single bit of good it does, whether it's for a bird, a person, or an animal, it's counted as a good deed for the person who planted it. What a beautiful spiritual incentive for stewardship, right? And this just shows you how consistent this whole ethic of care is. It's brilliant. On one hand, you have this powerful encouragement, go out and plant. On the other hand, you have a strict prohibition, do not destroy. And this wasn't just for peacetime. Even in the most extreme situation you can imagine, warfare, the Prophet commanded his followers not to cut down fruit-bearing trees. That shows such a deep, holistic, and sacred respect for any source of life. Now, this might be the most powerful one of all. Seriously, just picture this. The world is ending. The final hour is literally upon us. And you're standing there, holding a tiny palm shoot. What's the advice? It's not to pray, it's not to panic, it's to plant it. So why? Because the act of planting is an act of ultimate hope and faith in and of itself, totally separate from whether you'll ever see it grow.
It's about fulfilling your duty of care right up until the very last second.
So this is where all these ideas really come together. Islamic spirituality draws a direct, unbroken line between cultivating the earth and cultivating the heart. The way we treat our external environment, it's seen as a direct mirror of what's going on inside, in our internal spiritual state.
And this simple analogy, honestly, it's the core of this entire concept. Think of it this way. Just like rain is needed to soften up hard, dry earth so seeds can grow, divine guidance, things like remembrance, gratitude, humility, is needed to soften the heart and make it receptive to goodness. Because a hard heart, just like dry soil, simply can't produce anything beautiful.
And all this leads to a really cool twofold understanding of cultivation. You've got two fields to work on. First, there's the external field, the physical acts of planting, preserving, and nurturing the environment around us. And then there's the internal field, growing things like sincerity, patience, and compassion inside our hearts. And the tradition teaches that these two fields are deeply interconnected. Showing mercy to plants actually reflects and helps develop mercy within your own soul.
All right, so as we start to wrap things up, let's just quickly reflect on the journey we've taken. We started by looking at a plant as just a plant, a simple object. But then we saw how it can be understood as a divine sign, then as a Quranic lesson, and finally as a mirror for our own inner growth. So what are the really big ideas to take with you from all this? First, plants in the Qur'an are these powerful symbols of life, mercy, and divine art. Second, the Prophet Muhammad taught that cultivating them is a sacred act of charity and hope. And maybe most importantly, that tending to the earth is a direct reflection of cultivating our own souls. You could say that true stewardship of nature is really, at its core, spiritual stewardship. So I'll leave you with this final question to reflect on. When you look at your own life, your actions, your intentions, what seeds are you planting for the future? And I mean that both literally, in the ground, and spiritually, in the hearts of others.